Mbak Titi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati Mr. Nurul Ikhwan, the Deputy Minister for Investment Planning at the Indonesian Ministry of Investments. Bapak Ibu sekalian, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dimas Muhammad. I'm a member of the advisory group to the Indonesian Minister of Investments, and it brings me tremendous pleasure to be moderating this first round of discussion this morning on such a riveting subject, policy response for sustainable direct investments in response to climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, just a few months ago, the International Panel on Climate Change issued a grim warning, predicting that with business as usual, the global temperature rise will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 2 decades, with devastating repercussions. But even without this scientific study, even without this statistic, widespread forest fires in Australia and California, super typhoons in the Philippines, and massive floods here in Indonesia are some of the reminders that the impacts of climate change are no longer far and away. They are here and they are real. Therefore, it is imperative for us to transition to a greener, low-carbon economy. But we know that this transition to a greener economy does not just magically happen by itself. We cannot take this transition for granted. In this regard, governments, with all of their policy instruments, have indispensable role in nudging, facilitating, and galvanizing this transformation to a greener economy. This is, for example, reflected by the Indonesian government's hard work and policy in attracting billions of strategic investment in the electric vehicle industry. But of course, despite this progress, the Indonesian government still has much room for improvement. And that is why this morning we are very fortunate to be joined by a panel of renowned and excellent speakers who will help us to better understand how we can fine-tune our policy instruments so that we can better attract investments that create jobs, elevate our economic productivity, as well as help to save our planet in the long run. First, we have the honor of welcoming Mr. Jiro Tominaga, the ADB's Country Director for Indonesia. We are also joined by Mr. James Chan, the Director of Division on Investment and Enterprise from UNCTAD in Geneva. And last but not least, we are also glad to welcome Mr. Derajat Wibowo, the board member of Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification. Each of these remarkable panelists will share their insights for around 15 minutes. And at the end, we will have around 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A and discussion. Without further ado, now let's go to our first panelist, Mr. Jiro Tominaga, the Asian Development Bank's Country Director for Indonesia. Mr. Tominaga has served as the Country Director of ADB to Indonesia since September this year. And prior to joining the Asian Development Bank, Mr. Tominaga has 30 years of experience at JICA, Japanese Ministry of Finance, and the World Bank. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Keio University and master's degree in economics from London School of Economics and Political Science. Good morning, Mr. Tominaga.
Good morning. Thank you very much for introduction.
Ohayo gozaimasu. You have...
Nice to see you. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Now I will be very happy to give you the screen. The screen is yours, Mr. Tominaga.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be able to speak in this meeting, in the forum, among the very distinguished speakers and panelists Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to today talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we see as Indonesia is facing, and then also can I share the presentation from my side rather than I made a little bit of an update, so sorry about that. So let me just I'm just going to use very brief slides for this. Let's see if it works. Does it work? Good. So yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar and on a very important topic. I want to talk about the key challenges on enhancing investments in general in Indonesia, and also for the very important part of the climate agenda. Also, I want to touch on a little bit about ADB's activities in related areas, and then possibly some policy direction for Indonesia going forward. I think it has already been made several times that the green and inclusive recovery will require both public and private capital, and very importantly, in a very large amount. At first glance, as you can see in the diagram here that I show you, capital in Indonesia seems more than adequate. However, you see that its public capital stock is relatively low, and because public capital as social overhead that can give positive externalities, such as in facilitating logistics to private ventures, particularly in private enterprises, Indonesia has a scope to increase public investment. With regard to logistics, in comparison with peer countries in the region, Indonesia ranked 46 in this indicator, World Bank's Logistics Performance Index. This is in 2018. This is behind Malaysia, which is 41st ranked, Thailand 32nd, and Vietnam and 39th. Again, sort of flagging the room for improvement, not only in quantity of the investment, but also in the quality of infrastructure. So financing for these needed public investment is a big challenge that need to be addressed. We expect that, of course, the part of that can come from the tax measures passed in September 2021, Tax Harmonization Act, which, according to some studies, are projected to increase tax revenues by about 1% of GDP through 2024. But even then, private investment can also do more in relation to Indonesia's goal of becoming a high-income economy by 2045. And also given the amount needed for investments goes much beyond what the public sector can provide. So one additional point in this investment story is that the productivity of investment. For example, Vietnam's capital stock is smaller, as you can see in this diagram, but yet its economic growth rate has been higher than that of Indonesia. And this is partly because, attributed to the productivity of capital in Vietnam, which is higher. As you can see in this diagram, it's low and decreasing incremental capital output ratio. You see the blue line is Vietnam. In comparisons, Indonesia's ICOR, which is the black line, stays high and then somewhat increasing. Okay, so I think the government is fully aware of the challenges that Indonesia is facing in these aspects. I think this forum, for example, is one of the efforts that we want to understand more about the challenges, but also about the actions that we need to take. Government has identified a few key constraints to private investment in general, and FDI in particular. First, the business environment is not conducive. I think it can be more conducive. And then also second, about the barriers that inhibit trade. Indeed, Indonesia has actually one of the highest barriers to FDI among middle and high-income countries. Its score in the OECD index on restrictiveness to FDI worsened from 0.31 in 2010 to 0.34 in 2019. In this index, the 0 means full openness. This is compared to the global average of 0.06. Just to illustrate again, just comparison with Vietnam, Vietnam's score in contrast improved to 0.15 in 2019 from 0.30 in 2010. So some of the challenges here include the approach to business licensing needs an update, and the ease of setting up operations can be improved to encourage FDI, particularly in job-creating sectors such as manufacturing. The governance of land transactions can be enhanced to make it easier to secure sites for factories, for example. Investors also face challenges due to the overlapping jurisdictions of the central and local governments in some cases. So addressing these constraints will likely, we think, increase both the volume of investments and the efficiency of capital, raising potential economic growth. Of course, Omnibus Job Creation Law promises to ease many of these constraints, thereby spurring investment, fostering technology transfer and domestic innovation, and improving business efficiency, and ultimately increasing job creation. We're also aware of the discussion currently taking place related to the Constitutional Court's recent decision, and we're closely monitoring the development. Meanwhile, for our part at ADB, we are helping the government of Indonesia through the Competitiveness, Industrial Modernization, and Trade Association Program, or CITA program. We're working closely with BKPM on this one. The program is aligned with the government's medium-term development plan. It aims to create an enabling environment for investments, ease barriers to trade, and help enterprises grow and upscale. More specifically, it includes support for policy measures to online single submission apparatus, simplify land-related transactions, the business process for government logistics services, and incentivize firms to adopt new technologies and upgrade workers' skills, just to mention a few of the many actions it supports. But as the opening remarks have amply and very articulate, explicitly articulated, that both post-pandemic and post-COP26 in the world, it is clear that investment needs not only to increase in volume and efficiency, but also to become more sustainable. This is because large amounts of additional investments are needed to build back better and greener. Accordingly, efforts to promote direct sort of investment, whether domestic or foreign, should also try to ensure that these investments are sustainable, economically, socially, environmentally, and of course, climate friendly and also climate adaptive. So this requires quite a comprehensive approach. Indonesia, like many other economies in the Asian Pacific, will need to mobilize capital to fund green investments, clean energy, and social investments, while also allocating resources for human capital development, such as public health, education, and job training. So the needs are vast and require an expanded range of financing, including blended or catalytic finance, debt equity funds, and grants, and all sorts of different innovative financing schemes included. And part of that, we're very encouraged that Indonesia is already taking steps to foster sustainable investment. For example, at COP26, Indonesia, the Philippines, and ADB launched an exciting new partnership initiative, the Energy Transition Mechanism. It's a blended finance solution that leverages its lower cost of capital from concessionally funds to reduce the working life of coal-fired power plants and support investments in renewable energy. So we view this as this mechanism can be is locally tailored, replicable, scalable, market-based mechanism for accelerating the transition combined with associated policy commitments from the government, which is also very important. Building back better and greener, this area I think is where multilateral development banks like ourselves, the ADB, can help. ADB has elevated its ambition recently to deliver climate financing to its developing member countries to $100 billion between 2019 to 2030. This target used to be 80 billion. So the additional financing will advance the climate agenda through new avenues for climate mitigation, scaling up of transformative adaptation projects, increasing ADB's private sector climate operations, supporting innovative financing, and of course, advancing reforms to support policies and institutions for enhanced climate resilience and mitigation. As with CITA program, ADB is also helping Indonesia's efforts to move towards green growth. Our activities focuses on investments in wind, solar, and geothermal through sovereign and non-sovereign financing, investments in policy reform and knowledge support in such areas as energy efficiency, access to sustainable energy, incentivizing private sector participation, carbon market, carbon trading, pricing. We have also been engaged in dialogue on the introduction, for example, of electronic buses, improvement in energy sector governance, and gender inclusion. We're also right now processing a project called Sustainable Development Goal in Indonesia 1 project. This is a project to provide financing to sub-projects in our own lending scheme through a financial intermediary with a clear green and financial bankability targets. So this is designed as a de-risking facility. It aims to leverage ADB and government funds to catalyze a multiple of green funds from private, institutional, and commercial sources over time. Regionally, ADB also manages the ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility. It provides technical assistance and then also loans to provide direct investments to eligible projects. So this kind of twin approach aims to help reduce risks associated with financing green infrastructure projects, making them more attractive, particularly to private capital investors. In Glasgow, COP26, the ASEAN Green Recovery Platform was also launched with participation by Minister Sri Mulyani and Minister Arifin. This platform consists for support from the Green Climate Fund, United Kingdom, EU, and the Italian state lender Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. It will expand and complement the ACGF, and we are hopeful that these sort of a menu of activities will help catalyze larger sustainable investments. But as I noted earlier, it is not just the volume of investment that matters, but its composition. And here an engaged public policy, I think, is critical. One example is the rooftop photovoltaic generation, where new regulations are opening up the market to both individual and private firms. So what can really government do in the policy aspects? Government can use various policies to shape markets and participate in them. So, for example, regulation to enforce common standards of information disclosure and impact measurement are an important first step to support sustainable investments from private sector. The government can also align finance and investment with the sustainable development goals by incorporating sustainability risks in its micro and macro planning efforts. It will be critical for the various government agencies to also have plans that have consistent targets for each sector. Pricing policy is a powerful instrument to promote renewable energy, to encourage sustainable investment in renewable energy. Tariff scheme set by the government can provide provide bankable prices. Implementation, of course, will be key. Implementation of the program that government develops is key to enhance credibility of the program in the eyes of investors. And also very important, there is a need to support the development of bankable projects and by de-risking the sustainable project financing. The ACGF and ASEAN Green Financing Platform, SDG 1 Indonesia that I talked about earlier, part of these efforts we're trying to contribute to in this direction. I should know that the private sector on its own is also already moving forward towards sustainable finance and investment. Particularly on large bond investors, for example, are starting to require credible decarbonization plans, scrutinizing the government plan and implementation record in this area. So it would be critical that for the government to try to stay ahead of these private sector efforts so that they can be rationally guided. So just to sum up, in the post-pandemic and the post-COP26 world, Indonesia needs to build back better and greener. That is also part of the global agenda. The potential payoff could be the faster and more sustainable growth. To achieve this, addressing the constraints that hold back the volume and productivity and quality of investment is essential. And here, ADB and our development partners, MDBs and others can also help. And the appropriate policies are critical. The government role is very critical, including prices that assure bankability, regulations to enhance measurement and disclosure, alignment with the SDGs, etc. So with this, I would like to give the floor back to the moderator. Thank you very much for your attention. And again, thank you very much for inviting me for this event. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Pak Jiro. Arigatou gozaimasu. If you have questions for Mr. Tominaga, and I'm sure a lot of you have, please feel free to raise your questions in the chat box on your Zoom. Now we shall move forward to the next panelist, Mr. James Chan, the Director of the Division of Investment and Enterprise at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD. Apart from his position as a director of UNCTAD, Mr. Chan is also a major lead researcher for the renowned World Investment Report, annually released by UNCTAD. And he is also the chair of the governing board of the UN Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, chief strategic advisor for World Association of Investment and Promotion Agencies, and a member of advisory board for some renowned academic institutions, including Columbia, Oxford, and Cornell. Unfortunately, because Mr. Chan currently resides in Geneva, and it's still 4 a.m. In the morning in Geneva, he is not able to join us live, but he is very pleased to share his insights through a taped recording. So now I give the screen to Mr. Chan.
It is an honor for me to speak at this important event. I will focus on the global megatrends investment and the policy implications for Indonesia. Despite the high uncertainty and complexity of the global economic growth prospects, the business is adapting itself to the new normal and the start massive expansion. FDI is on the trajectory to rapid recovery. Three mega drivers for the global investment prospects. First, rapid business expansion. Overall, global demand is strong and the supply chain needs huge capex, while such capital is cheap and abundant. The global FDI prospects is now moving out of the shadow. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic slashed global FDI by 35% to $1 trillion. But in 2021, global FDI has been bouncing back at a pace that far exceeds expectations. In just the first half of 2021, global FDI reached $852 billion, recovering 70% of its lost ground. The UNCTAD data shows that FDI inflows to developed economies and the middle-income economies have surged by 100% and 30% respectively, while FDI in low-income economies remain at a low level. My assessment is that a full recovery is expected to be achieved by the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022. Second, accelerated global value chain reconfiguration. Global supply chains are being restructured to create resilience to the next shock, leading to massive relocation of international production segments through diversification, regionalization, and the nearshoring. This is partly due to the lessons from the pandemic and partly due to the geopolitical rivalry. These large-scale adjustments to global production system will boost the international capital flows and their new geographical patterns. The recent boom of cross-border merger and acquisitions, an increase by 30%, is a case in point. Even though the greenfield investment has been lagging in the first 3 quarters of the year, a catching up is expected in 2022, led by strong investment growth in infrastructure and the new energy sectors. Third, surging sustainability finance. The sustainability imperatives is now effectively driving global finance and investment. The worldwide endeavor to address climate change and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 has boosted global demand for investment in green and blue economies. The increasing call for higher environmental, social, and governance standards are pushing multinational companies to transform their business models and operations towards sustainable development. This will also greatly boost the global investment. In recent years, sustainability finance keep breaking records. According to UNCTAD, global sustainability-focused finance increased by 80%, even during the pandemic in 2020. It reached $3.2 trillion. It consists of $1.7 trillion of sustainability-themed equity funds, $1 trillion of green bonds, $212 billion of social bonds, and $280 billion of mixed sustainability funds. Such funds are expected to grow exponentially in the years to come to finance FDI. Risks and uncertainties remain very high. Short term, the duration of the health crisis and the pace of vaccinations in developing countries, as well as the speed of implementation of investment stimulus, remain important factors of uncertainty. Other important risk factors, including labor and supply chain bottlenecks, energy prices, and inflationary pressures, will also affect the final year results. Longer term wise, VUCA, that is, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the global economy and economic prospects remain strong. Rising economic nationalism and the geopolitical tensions continue to impact on outward foreign direct investment. Channeling investment into sustainable development goal sectors, particularly in developing countries, remain a big challenge. Now, the implications for investment promotion and facilitation in the case of Indonesia. The 3 mega trends which I have just highlighted have been driving and will continue to drive the global investment recovery. They present enormous new opportunities and challenges for governments and business worldwide. Some implications for investment promotion. First, shifting gears and fostering partnership. Governments and the investment promotion agencies need to shift their focus from investment in retention in coping with the pandemic to proactive investment promotion. They also need to target right segments of resilience-driven global value chain reconfiguration. Governments need strategies to facilitate resilience-oriented business relocation. Collaboration among the investment promotion agencies, trade promotion organizations, and special economic zones are particularly important. Second, targeting at sustainability investment. The booming of sustainability-themed financial products can be conducive to the investment, not only in quantity, but also in quality. Investment promotion agencies and special economic zones need to target that investment in green and blue economies. They need to get project pipelines ready for sustainability-themed finance for investment in SDG sectors. The growth of industrial activities, smart cities, and data centers would have a significant impact on demand for energy. Here, Indonesia could encourage investment in the production of renewable energy, such as solar, wind, and hydropower, to meet existing and growing demand. Third, building capacity for bankable SDG project preparation. There's a need to seek technical assistance from international organizations and development agencies, as well as partnership with international private sector entities specialized in project pipeline preparation for sustainable investment. Fourth, infrastructure building. Indonesia has embarked upon major physical infrastructure development to meet the demand and support economic growth. The pandemic has advanced the push for attracting investment in infrastructure. Many mega projects, power, transportation, and telecommunications are coming on stream. But more infrastructure investment is needed, including in digital infrastructure and 5G connectivity. This is another key sustainable investment area worth advancing faster. Fifth, special economic zones. Indonesia could adopt policy measures to modernize the existing special economic zones. It could also consider piloting sustainable development goal model zones and demonstrate its positive impact to the rest of the country. The SDG model zones refers to the zones that introduces high environmental, social, and governance standards on the one hand, and facilitate international investment in the SDG sectors on the other. For details, please see UNCTAD World Investment Report 2019. My final point is on G20. Indonesia has established the 3 pillars for its G20 presidency in 2022. Global health architecture, sustainable energy transition, and digital transformation. These investment cuts across all 3 pillars. No investment, no achievements of these 3 pillars. UNCTAD stands ready to provide technical support in the area of investment for the 3 pillars of the Indonesian presidency next year. UNCTAD is also conducting in-depth assessment of the implications of global tax reforms for international investment, particularly investment to developing countries. I would like to take this opportunity to express our great appreciation to the Indonesian government for its strong support to UNCTAD's work in the area of investment over the years. The most recent example is the BKPM chairman, Bahli Lahadalia, delivered a keynote speech at our World Investment Forum 2021. We also thank the deputy ministers and other senior officials at the BKPM for their excellent cooperation over the years. Thank you very much. Let's keep in touch. We are ready to help you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chan. And now we shall move forward to the last panelist in this round of discussion, We are honored to welcome Pak Derajat Wibowo, the board member of program for the endorsement of forest certification. He is also someone with extensive experience in sustainable development. He founded Sustainable Development Indonesia back in 2009. And in 2011, he founded as well as served as the general chair of the Indonesian Forestry Certification Corporation. Pak Derajat also obtained his bachelor degree from IPB Bogor, and he holds his master's and PhD from the University of Tasmania. Selamat pagi, Pak Derajat. The screen is yours. Sir, I'm sorry, it seems that you're still on mute.
Selamat pagi, Mas Dimas. Good morning, Pak Nurul Ikhwan, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just a slight correction, I'm not graduated from University of Tasmania. I'm graduated from University of Queensland. It's quite far, Tasmania and Queensland, some 100 kilometers. Let's start my presentation. Can the organizer put my presentation on for share screen? Please, yeah. Okay. Nope. Can you move forward to the front, to the first page? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share what sustainable forest management roles, sustainable forest management certification can have roles in developing, promoting, and advancing sustainable business and investment. And I hope you don't mind if I will make my presentation in English and also in Bahasa Indonesia to make some point clearer. Can we move to the next page, please? Okay, Bapak-bapak, Ibu-ibu, and everybody, how would you feel if your belongings, your shirt, your jacket, and also next, please, your consumptions of papers, toilet papers, facial papers, baby paper, baby tissue, and so move, please. Quickly browsing, and also copy papers. Next. And also the package that delivered to you, also some of your shoes, some of your bag, some of your coffee cups. Next. And also the paper bag that you are buying from stores, and the box for your shoes, your hand gloves. Next. And the magazines that you read, the Economist, Ask Economics, usually read the Economist. Next, please. And also when you fly, the magazine that you read, in-flight magazines. Next, please. Next. How do you feel if all those that you consume, that you buy, come from the seedling on the left, ya, berasal dari bibit yang ada di kiri, growing into a man-made planted forest on the left. Bagaimana kita merasakan apabila if every product that we consume, we don't chop any forest, we don't chop any naturally grown trees, we don't chop any old growth forest. We don't contribute to flood, contribute to any environmental disasters. Jadi bagaimana kalau setiap konsumsi kita itu sama sekali tidak merusak lingkungan, tidak menimbulkan banjir. Instead, our consumptions actually come from something that we plant and we grow. Berasal dari sesuatu yang kita tanam dan tumbuh, kita rawat jadi besar, kemudian jadi baju kita. Next, please. That's exactly what you get if you buy PEFC certified products based on IFCC's scheme. I will explain to you later on what's PEFC and what's IFCC very briefly. Making use of IFCC schemes, as of today, the holders of PEFC SFM certificate Indonesia are all plantation forest companies. Semuanya itu adalah perusahaan HTI, hutan tanaman industri. This is in addition to the processing manufacturers holding a PEFC chain of custody certificates. Yeah, it means all our certificate holders harvest and process woods from forests planted years ago. Jadi semua yang kita konsumsi itu berasal dari hutan yang ditanam tahun 90 dan tahun 2000. Bukan berasal dari hutan alam, bukan berasal dari hutan yang memiliki high conservation value. And all plantation forests eligible for our certification, around 4 million hectares in total in Indonesia at the moment, have been certified. And the rest of Indonesian plantation forests are not eligible for our certification because they are converted from primarily forests after the 31st of December 2010. Next, please. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, what is then SFM certification? Ini definisi dari SFM, Sustainable Forest Management, itu definisi internasionalnya adalah the process of managing forest to achieve one or more clearly specified objectives of management with regard to the production of continuous flow of desired forest products and services without undue reduction di dalam nilai-nilai yang ada dari hutan tanpa merusak physical and social environment. PEFC, the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification, actually is the largest SFM certification scheme in the world. We already certified around 340 million hectares of forest around the world. We have around 60 countries as our members, plus some tens of leading global corporations such as Tesco, ya, perusahaan-perusahaan besar itu yang menjadi anggota kita. So PEFC is a leading global alliance of national forest certification schemes, and PEFC is dedicated to promoting sustainable forest management through independent third-party certification. Jadi poin kuncinya adalah we are independent third-party certification. Independent third-party means that our certification is not government sanctioned certification, ya, bukan sertifikat milik pemerintah, but ini sertifikat dari para pelaku usaha dan para NGOs. So we are outside the government, but we work very closely with the government. Next, please. What is PEFC certifications? Kita semua produk yang mempunyai sertifikat PEFC is ensured that the forest product produced with respect to the highest ecological, social, and ethical standards. So when you see PEFC label, it means that the forest-based material within the product come from a PEFC certified forest, which is a forest that is managed in line with the strictest environmental, social, economic requirements. A forest that will be around for generations to come. Jadi kalau bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu membeli produk ada logo kami, itu artinya kami menjamin bahwa semua yang ada di dalam barang yang berasal dari hutan yang ada di dalam produk tersebut itu berasal dari hutan yang lestari, bukan berasal dari hutan yang rusak atau yang hasil deforestasi. Next, please. And why did Indonesia, our country, establish IFCC? Actually, I established IFCC in 2011 when I was still vice chairman of my party. Still vice chairman to Pak Hatta Rajasa at that time. Kita dulu, we used to have a LEI FSC Joint Certification Protocol, but then in the 2000s and early 2010s, the Indonesian forestry sector had been on the receiving end of global campaigns against illegal logging and deforestation, resulting in some of the largest global corporations boycotting Indonesia's pulp and paper produces. Jadi pada tahun itu, sekitar tahun 2010-an, itu perusahaan-perusahaan besar seperti Xerox, seperti Walmart, ya, supermarket terbesar di dunia, itu memboikot Indonesia, tidak mau membeli barang hasil hutan Indonesia, terutama pulp and paper, karena kita dianggap banyak illegal logging dan deforestasi, dan NGO dunia, LSM-LSM dunia berkampanye melawan kita. As a consequence, Indonesia annual pulp and paper exports declined by around 1 to 1.5 billion, anjlok 1 sampai 1 miliar dolar, with a large effect on unemployment and poverty in the affected regions and business chains. Jadi turunnya besar sekali, sekitar 20 sampai 30% ya, karena kampanye boikot tadi. Next, please. On the other hand, during this period, the Indonesian forestry sector had been undergoing significant governmental and corporate transformations to eradicate illegal logging, to implement SFM. Law enforcement and governance were significantly improved. Forest companies, especially those in plantation forests, made huge investment and painful corporate cultural transformation to satisfy globally accepted SFM criteria and indicators. Sementara pada tahun-tahun itu pemerintah dan para pelaku usaha itu melakukan banyak sekali perbaikan untuk kita mengatasi illegal logging dan menerapkan pengelolaan hutan lestari. Following this improvement and transformations, Indonesian stakeholders recognize the urgent need to establish an independent and credible globally endorsed SFM certification scheme. Jadi hasil kerja keras tadi itu kalau tidak dapat cap itu nggak diketahui, sama seperti cap halal dan sebagainya ya. Kalau tidak ada capnya, tidak ada sertifikatnya, maka dunia tidak tahu. Sehingga para stakeholders merasakan adanya kebutuhan, lalu mereka mendatangi saya, minta tolong saya untuk membangun sebuah sertifikasi, skema sertifikasi yang secara global itu diterima oleh pasar ya ini ya menerima, tapi juga sesuai dengan karakteristik Indonesia. So, hence the establishment of IFCC. Jadi itulah sebabnya kenapa kita membuat IFCC dan membangun sertifikasi sendiri, tapi beraliansi dengan global di Geneva, dan sekarang saya menjadi anggota dari Board of Directors di Geneva. Kita lanjutkan. Next, please. Okay, this is about IFCC, and the key words in IFCC is cooperation. I intentionally choose the word cooperation to show that in our works, everything is based on cooperation among stakeholders. That no blackmailing, no finger pointing, everything based on cooperation, and with stakeholders, I mean both private sectors, NGOs, as well as governments as stakeholders. Next, please. And as of this year, we have 51 members, 22 members in the business caucus, come from forestry associations. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu pernah dengar nama APHI, Asosiasi Perusahaan Hutan Indonesia, itu salah satu anggota kami. Forest Management Units, kami ada anggota mulai dari yang besar-besar, dari APP, April, kemudian ada Jarum, ada macam-macam yang kecil-kecil juga, semua pabrik kertas juga menjadi anggota kami, and certification bodies. And 20 members in the civil society caucus that come from the scientific communities, NGOs, indigenous community representative, women representative, and so on. Next, please. This is some details about IFCC. So the standard, it is not me, the one who developed standard. Jadi saya bukan yang membuat standar. It is developed by the Standardization Committee, chaired by one professor from IBB, Professor Didi dari IPB, and with members from 8 stakeholders groups. Jadi anggota dari Standardization Committee itu ada dari business, children, forest owners, indigenous people, governments, NGOs, scientific community, and juga dari serikat pekerja. Next, please. And this is the structure. So we heard the name PFC. PFC is the umbrella organization headquartered in Geneva. This is a membership-based organization. The main office is in Geneva. And then FCC is called the standard setting body, the national, the NGB, National Governing Body, itu adalah wakil dari PFC yang ada di Indonesia. And we have accreditation bodies, we have certification bodies. We use accreditation from Italy, from Accredial. We still working with Indonesia Accreditation Authority, CAN, but because we need to do it quickly, we work with Italy first. But with CAN, we make some significant progresses. Certification bodies untuk SFM, we have certification bodies from Italy and also from France. From Indonesia, ada beberapa yang sedang dalam proses. Next, please. Okay, I will just skip this one. It shows how stringent is our development, our certifications, that everything is based on consensus. At the global level with PSC based on consensus. At the national level, FCC based on consensus, and so on. Next, please. This is some of the milestones we established on the 9th of September 2011. I choose September 9 because at that time the president was President SBY, and to respect Pak SBY, we established FCC on his birthday. And at the moment, as of today, more than 4 million actually, 4 million hectares of forest companies in Indonesia certified, plus 41 companies awarded the chain of custody certificates. Next, please. This is the distribution of our certificates, mostly for forest, sustainable forestry in Sumatra and in Kalimantan. There are 75 HTI that has been certified. Next, please. And this is for the industries. So, Bapak Ibu ada dua jenis sertifikat, satu sertifikat untuk hutannya, satu sertifikat untuk industri pengolahannya. Nah, ini adalah industri pengolahannya. It's across Java, Sumatra, and Kalimantan. Next, please. Ini jumlahnya, ya, jumlah industries dan jumlah hektarsnya. Next, please. Nah, this graph shows the impacts of our certificates on Indonesia export. Saya jelaskan dalam bahasa Indonesia saja. Itu yang hijau, bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, adalah ekspor pulp and paper. Nah, sebelumnya itu masih tinggi. Sebelum tahun 2012 itu ada di sekitar mendekati 6. Terus turun anjlok karena boykot yang tadi saya ceritakan. Nah, sertifikat pertama kami luncurkan itu tahun 2015, setelah hampir semuanya bersertifikat, tahun 2016 bersertifikat semuanya, kita bisa melihat ekspornya melonjak sangat drastis. So Indonesia pulp and papers export saw a sharp increase of around 2.2 billion US dollars. 2,2 miliar US dollar kenaikan ekspor setelah perusahaan-perusahaan tersebut mendapat sertifikat. Karena apa? Karena perusahaan-perusahaan besar itu banyak yang mensyaratkan harus ada sertifikat kita sebagai salah satunya untuk mereka bisa menerima produk pulp and papers maupun produk fashion, ya. Jadi dari hasil hutan itu bukan hanya untuk pulp and papers, tapi bisa juga dipakai untuk baju, bisa dipakai untuk batik dan sebagainya. Next, please. I think I will just skip this one. That's in context of COP 26. We are part of the Keep 1.5 Celsius Alive. Ya, itu hasil dari COP kemarin. Next, please. Next. This is the no. Yeah, this is leaders' declaration on forest and land use, which Pak Jokowi also signed. Yeah. The leaders, Presiden dan para Perdana Menteri, say that we therefore commit to working collectively to halt and reverse forest loss and land degradation by 2030, while delivering sustainable development and promoting an inclusive rural transformation. Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, SFM certification involves, number one, external ecosystem. Kita tidak bisa berjalan kalau external ekosistemnya tidak bagus. External ecosystems means government policy, laws, regulations, political ecosystem. Ya, jadi kalau pemerintah tidak segera menangani kebakaran hutan, pemerintah tidak segera menangani berbagai masalah deforestasi, maka sertifikasi itu akan sulit berjalan. Karena itu sertifikasi ini bisa berjalan, itu adalah karena pemerintah menunjukkan berbagai banyak sekali kemajuan di dalam sektor kehutanan maupun lingkungan hidup. So we are very grateful, kita sangat berterima kasih karena external ecosystem yang diciptakan pemerintah memungkinkan sertifikasi kami untuk bergerak. Karena kalau tidak, orang akan mengatakan, loh, situasi kamu rusak kok bisa ada yang dapat sertifikat. So we will lose credibility. Yeah. So external ecosystem is very, very crucial in enabling our certification to work. Number two, rock solid commitments from government, private sector, and public. Harus ada komitmen yang luar biasa dari semua layers, ya, termasuk juga dari masyarakat terhadap SFM. Three, corporate transformation towards sustainability. Ini corporate transformation ini berat sekali, ya. Perlu kerja keras, berdarah-darah perusahaan untuk bertransformasi agar dia menjadi sustainable. Jadi nggak bisa asal kami cap sustainable begitu, nggak bisa. Mereka harus melakukan banyak sekali perubahan manajemen dan sebagainya. Large investments is very costly to be SFM is very costly, and multi-stakeholder partnership at the global, national, and local levels. So SFM certification, which I presented to you today, is an example, is a very good example of a real progress in climate change mitigation, even though there are still many work to do and shortcomings to rectify. Next, please.
Pak Derajat, mohon maaf. Ya, Pak Derajat, mohon maaf, you have 1 minute left ya Pak.
Oke, 1 minute left. Okay.
Thank you Pak.
Sebagai penutup, saya akan tunjukkan global brands yang mensyaratkan PRC certificate, PRC certified materials. Ini global brand, contoh brand-brand global. Itu Apple, itu di situ mensyaratkan harus ada sertifikat kita. Next. Johnson & Johnson. Next. Walmart is the largest supermarket. Next. Nestle. Next. Next, please. P&G. Next. Quickly, you can Samsung. Quickly. Home Depot. And so on. Many others. LV. Kalau ibu-ibu suka LV, LV mensyaratkan ada sertifikat kita. Zara mensyaratkan ada sertifikat kita. You name all global markets. Most of them requires our certificate. I hope my presentation gives some input to you to think about how we can contribute to climate change mitigation through green investment and green business. Thank you.